Alright, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Salatu Salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'a hudah. Amma ba'd. So, starting from today, we have 4 lessons. So we have 4 weeks, including today's lesson. The quiz, which is next week, we'll do it and we'll start the new lesson right after it. So that we'll finish on the 10th, June 10th, which is about a week before Ramadan. So this was the agreement. Next week we're going to start the rules of Ra, the letter Ra. And it's going to be just a short quiz. We can do the quiz at the beginning and then start the new lesson right after it, inshallah. Last week and the week before we spoke about Al-Mim As-Sakina. Anybody has any questions about Al-Mim As-Sakina? The rules of Al-Mim As-Sakina? Alright. A question that was asked by Brother Muhammad last week after the lesson is in regards to the closing of the lips when we do the ikhfa of the Mim As-Sakina. And this also applies to the iqlab of a nun sakina, right? If you remember, when we do the iqlab, it's turning into a mim, and the mim is meeting a ba. So the iqlab has the ikhfa of the mim included in it, right? You understand this part, I hope. So the difference of opinion, as I mentioned to him, is that some scholars say that we have to close the lips. And closing the lips here means that not squeezing them, right? Just closing them. But I don't think they agree if a person would squeeze them, that it is wrong. So they don't differ on this. So it is wrong to squeeze the lips. So you just have to close them barely, right? And the other opinion is that you have to leave a small gap between the lips when you pronounce the ikhfa, or when you are doing the iqlab of the noon, right? These are the 2 opinions. So I myself have been asking people who are specialized in this over the years, over so many years, and of course people tell you different things, right? Depending on what option or what opinion they are more comfortable with. So today I was just reviewing this article of this guy who seems to be specialized in the qira'at. It's quite a long article, so you can see that people actually write books just about something as small as whether we close the lips when we do the ikhfa of the mim or not. Right? A very long article where he brought all the saying of the early scholars and also the saying of the late scholars, and he compared them. It seems like this opening of the lips or leaving a closed gap has been basically introduced over the last 100 years. So according to him, and according to other people as well, that the early scholars, and especially the famous ones who have written about this knowledge of qira'at, they never mentioned anything about leaving a small gap, right? But the issue was that when you are trying to hide the meme, there is no other way, logically. And this also came to me many years ago, is that logically, if you want to hide it, then you have to open your lips. If you close your lips, then you pronounce the meme, right? Logically. But at the end of the day, if you are studying under a sheikh and he wants you to do something, you will have to do it. Right? You will have no option. And this man claimed that Sheikh Uthman, I believe, I can't remember the name now, who was born in the 1900s, he was in charge of the recordings of the Egyptian radio, where all the major recordings were done. So everybody was under his, basically, control, right? So if anyone, and this was also related by Sheikh Abdul Basit, the famous Sheikh, he said if one of them would read it without opening the lips or leaving a closed gap, he would ask him to repeat it in the recording. And then this recording eventually, according to him, spread, right, all over the Muslim world. And this became the reference. So that's how this idea of leaving a gap. And of course, when you read this, at the end of the article, because this sheikh was convinced that this is the truth and there is no doubt that we shouldn't be leaving a gap, you will be convinced that this is the opinion and this is the truth, right? As it is the case with any other opinion. When you read it, you read the evidence, you'll get convinced, right? It's a well-written, well-documented issue. So at the end of the day, I say again, if you're reading to a sheikh and he wants you to do something, you will have to do it. Otherwise, I mean, you will be teaching him. Right? If he's teaching you, then you have to do what he tells you to do. And I was telling Brother Muhammad, when I read to a sheikh in Medina, he asked me to make the Madd al-Munfasil 4 harakat. This is how they do it through a Shatibiyya. People, especially people who are very, they insist quite a bit on this. Some of them, they even say, if you don't read it like this, you're not reading with Tajweed, right? So they don't even consider the other option. So if they ask you to do it, he asked me to do it, and I had to do it, right? That's why when we practice, we try to do both ways, right? Even if you are used to doing just one way, in a practice environment, we try to see how the other option feels like. If you are teaching a beginner regarding the mim sakina or the iqlab of a noon, then you would just tell them to close the lips. This is the easiest way of doing it. Right? Whether later on he's going to believe that we should leave a small gap or not, that's up to the individual. But for a beginner, I always tell people, just close your lips. Right? So that's regarding the mim sakina that we spoke about last week. Today we have Brother Nabil is active. Congratulations. Brother Mahmoud is silent. In case you didn't realize, you already missed 2. The people who already missed 1 are Brother Ibrahim and Brother Sajjad. And Brother Nabil, you already missed 1, so you only have 1 life spare. All right. All right, so today we have, there was one more thing about the mim sakina that I may or may not have mentioned when we spoke about it. Whether the idgham and the ikhfa happen in 2 words or 1 word. Did I mention anything about this? The ikhfa only happens in 2 words. Do you think that this information is important? Why not? Yes, Brother Baghdad.
Because in ikhfa with mim sakina, it can happen inside the word or in 1 word. If there is no with sukun,
maybe you didn't get my question. You are answering something else. I said, is this information important? Is it important to know whether it happens in 1 word or 2 words? Is it important? With the idgham or ikhfa. I was talking about the ikhfa, but Yeah, I was talking about the ikhfa, but I'm talking now about the information itself. When I tell you that the ikhfa happens in 2 words or 1 word, is this information important or not?
Yes. Yes, like, well, why wouldn't it be?
Well, the information is only important if a person remembers it. All right? And this is the issue we have in Tajweed, right? Like after you read, let's say, I read today the article or this long, it was actually a book, right, about the meme sakina, or not even the meme sakina, about whether we close the lips or not. It's just like something really small inside a rule. Is it important for me to know all these details? Am I going to remember all this? I should only write down that the lips would be closed. But if I take this from the whole book, that's more than enough, because I'm not going to remember all the details and who said what. Sheikh Mahmoud Khalil al-Husari, he said that the lips should be closed. And according to this sheikh, that he said, I watched the videos, the old recordings, video recordings of these mashayikh, and he claimed that he saw them closing their lips. But is this information important? Do I need to go and read a book about, let's say, whether the ikhfa happens in 1 word or 2 words?
Depends what you want to do.
Yeah, it does depend on whether the individual is going to be specializing in this, whether he has the ability to remember all this. Otherwise, he's just going to bother himself going through all this stuff, right? Trying to remember details that may not be useful in terms of putting it into practice, right? It helps when let's say you learn that the ikhfa of the meme only happens in 2 words. How does this help you? It helps you in a way that when you are looking at the letters, you are not going to bother about a meme sakina that is found within the word, which means that a meme sakina that is not found at the end of the word, right? That means you are not going to think about it. We are not going to think what comes after it, right? Because this will take processing time. So if you know that it's only going to happen in 2 words, that means you're going to be looking for a meme sakina at the end of the word, right? It will cut down your processing time. But if you don't know this, you will be looking for any meme sakina and trying to figure out what comes after it to see what to do with it. Right? This is how the information is, whether it is important or not. Yes, Brother Baghdad.
For this reason, I gave a comparison between the meme and the noon. In the case of the noon, you need to look inside. But
yes.
For the meme, it's so better to.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Yeah. In the case of the noon, it is true, because the noon has 4 different rules, and it could be in the middle or at the end. So whenever we see a noon sakina, we have to basically stop and think, what are we going to do, and what is coming after it, what comes after it, right? So whether it is in the middle or at the end. So in the case of a noon sakina, it doesn't really matter if we know which rule happens in the middle of the word or in 2 words. It's not very relevant in terms of a noon sakina. In the meme sakina, the ikhfa, as I said now, only happens in 2 words. For the idgham, if you go and read what happens to the idgham, whether it happens in 2 words or 1 word, they would say it happens in 1 word and it does happen in 2 words. But then when you go and look into the details, what are examples of, like you mentioned, it has to be mim mushaddada. Yeah, what are examples? I was thinking myself, what are an example of a mim sakina that has idgham within a word? I couldn't think of anything. And then I realized that it only happens in the huruf al-muqatta'a. That's the only time it happens. Which means, as far as I'm concerned, it happens only in 2 words, right? So I can safely try to remember that it only happens in 2 words. Huruf al-muqatta'a, I don't consider it a word, right? Like for me, I don't consider it as a normal word. It's like it has like a specific way of reciting. When we read alif lam, so the alif, the lam, when we write lam, we write it like this. So it has a meme, and then meme. So we say alif, lam, meme. So a meme, the meme of the word lam meets the meme of the word meme. Right? This is what happens when we read alif, lam, meme. And that's why we have idgham. And this is, basically they call this one word. They called it one word, right?
Are they separated?
Well, because lam, the way it is written, it's not written like this in the mushaf, right? They only write the actual letter alif and then lam at the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, like this. They write it like this. It's like one word, alif, lam, mim. But the way you pronounce it like this: alif, lam, and mim. Right? And of course, here you do idgham. You do apply the idgham here. All right. So today's lesson actually was Al-Qalqalة. And the Qalqalة is basically applies to letters that are otherwise very hard to hear when a person recites them. And those letters are grouped in these 2 words. I'm just going to erase this. The qalqala and also the rules of the ra. When you think about them, today and the next 3 weeks, we're going to be speaking about these rules that are really there's not very much to say about them. It's mainly how to put them into practice. This is what usually people have trouble with. Right? But otherwise, there's not very much to say. So these letters are grouped in this sentence, or these 2 words, qutbu jaddin. And what happens is that when they have a sukun on them, unless we do qalqala, it's very hard to hear them. It's very hard to hear them unless we do qalqala. So it's like the qalqala amplifies them. And the word qalqala, as found in some of the translations or the book of Tajweed, is basically shaking of the letter, or an echo. I used to call it an echo. You put in an echo into the letter. Because what happens when these letters have a sukun on them, the air is blocked. There's no air that will be able to come out. So because the air is blocked, then the sound will be blocked as well. Every time the air is blocked, the sound will be blocked. That's why they need to be amplified. So do you think these letters are found in the middle of a word, or at the beginning, or is it at the end?
Middle or at the end.
The middle or the end? Do you agree with him? Who doesn't agree? All right. That's true. That was a trap. So it never happens at the beginning of a word. Why? Yes, Brother Muhammad.
You don't start a word with a sukoon.
You don't start a word with a sukoon. That's what you wanted to say? All right, good. So you don't start a word with a sukoon. In the books of Tajweed, they would say that there is a qalqala sughra and qalqala kubra. I sometimes I find these things funny because it's not a big deal if you know if it is sughra or kubra, if it is small qalqala or a big qalqala. Right? It's not really a big deal as long as you know how to do it. Right? You don't really need to divide it into sections and small details. The common mistake here, the common problem is that people usually don't make qalqala at all, or they don't know how to make it. So whether the letter is in the middle of a word or at the end of a word, then we still have to do qalqala. Whether the sukoon is original or non-original. What does it mean, non-original sukoon, in this case? Yes.
When we stop in the word.
Jazakallah khair, yes, that's true. When we stop, let's say this word, this particular word, if we stop on it, we say jad. Right? We put a sukoon on the dal. That sukoon is not original. Right? So whether the sukoon is original or not, it doesn't matter. We still have to apply qalqala. Whether we stop on the word or not, if that letter has a sukoon, then we still have to do qalqala. And this is what they called qalqala sughra or kubra. They said if you stop on the word, then it is qalqala kubra. It seems that the qalqala is kind of a little more powerful than if you continue. Meaning that if you continue and that letter still has a sukoon, right? And you will see that sometimes some people, the ones who know how to do qalqala, they may have difficulty with either when the qalqala is at the end, or when they stop on a word, or when it is in the middle. So people may have different issues related to where the qalqala is. So they may be doing it properly when it is at the end, but then they will have problems when it is in the middle, right? And other people will have the other way around. So the homework was supposed to be Surah Al-Adiyat, and I'm sure we did read Surah Al-Adiyat before, right? I'm sure we read it in probably level 1. So today we're going to read it again. So we're supposed to have Surah Al-Adiyat and Surah Al-Falaq. And you can tell me, why did I choose Surah Al-Adiyat? After we read them, tell me, why did I choose Surah Al-Adiyat and Surah Al-Falaq? What is? Yes, Brother Ibrahim? A lot of qalqalas. Yes. Yes, Brother Ibrahim. The same thing? All right, good. But actually there was something else.
In Surah Al-Adiyat, you have qalqala in the middle of a word, like verb and other word, but in Surah Al-Falaq, you have that in the end of the words.
Jazakallah khair. This is what I was looking for. Even though what you both said, it was true, correct. Surah Al-Adiyat has the qalqala mainly in the middle of the word, and Surah Al-Falaq at the end of the word. But this was the difference, right? Because as I said, some people have a problem when it is at the end, some people have a problem when it is in the middle. All right, instead of giving examples, we can just read, spend more time reading them, because we have two surahs and we'll need more time to read both of them. So we can read them and we'll see the examples, inshallah, while we read.
Not gonna give us examples of the echo?
Let me read it first then. Let me read it first, and I will read it at the end as well. Sometimes I used to do this, is to read it at the beginning and at the end.
Also, before you read,
Yes.
I wasn't quite sure. So are there implications in terms of pronunciation when it comes in between or at the end? Is there a difference?
All right, let me give an example then. I just remembered something, is that sometimes it's good to know what mistakes do people do, right? How would a person read it if he doesn't know the qalqala, right? Let me write down an example here. Let's take the word ahad. The word ahad, which is found in the surah, Surah Al-Ikhlas. This word, ahad, and this is a surah that most people read. So when we stop on the word ahad, and most people would stop at the word ahad, qul huwa Allahu ahad, right? So if a person doesn't know tajweed and he doesn't know how to do qalqala and doesn't do qalqala on the word ahad, he would say ahad, ahad. What happened? What happened here? What happened? What did you hear? Well, because you know what you heard about the word echo, but what happened when the way I read it?
We did not listen that properly. It's like ahad.
Yeah, we didn't hear the dal. We didn't hear it at all. I almost didn't pronounce it on purpose. Ahad, like this, ahad. You know that I'm pronouncing a dal because you know the word, right? And you expect me to pronounce it. But really, if you listen closely, I didn't really pronounce a dal, ahad. Well, let's say, I will not pronounce the dal at all. If I say ahad, like this, ahad, or ahad, they are very close, right? Unless I do the qalqala. When I do the qalqala, ahad, a big difference, right? It's a big difference. So a person who doesn't know tajweed or doesn't know qalqala, in his head, he knows that he's pronouncing a dal, right? And he knows what word he's pronouncing, and he's confident that he's not doing anything wrong, right? Because when you're talking in a conversation, nobody will tell you, what's the last letter that you pronounced just now? Well, nobody will ask you to repeat a letter, right? He will try to figure it out, right? He will try to figure out what word you pronounced according to the context, right? So that's why in a normal conversation, people don't ask. But when you are reciting the Quran, you want to do it perfectly, right? And you want, even if you are by yourself, even if nobody is listening to you, you want to pronounce each and every letter. You're not going to start hiding letters, right? So if a person doesn't know qalqala, this is what he would say. He would say ahad. So you can't hear the dal. And when we do the qalqala, we say ahad, da, right? Da. Allahu samad, samad, right? If a person doesn't do qalqala here, he would say samad, samad. Right? You see the difference? All right. So let's try to put this into practice. All right, Surah Al-Adiyat. Okay. Okay, last time we started from the bottom of the list, right? So today.
You were going to read it first.
Yes, that's true. All right. I guess my name starts with Z, so I'm on the bottom of the list. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير. All right. Brother Ahmed is not here. Brother Ahmed is not here. Sister Aya. Now you are at the top of the list. You are at the top of the list because of your name.
فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
Jazakallah khair. Ayah number 6. The last word of ayah number 6. The word lakanud. What rule do we have in the word lakanud?
We have med tabi'i.
Where?
Because there's the noon that has the dhamma, and after there's a web.
Okay. So that's a med tabi'i. What's the proof that it's a med tabi'i?
The letter before it has the dhamma.
All right. Do you agree with her? All right. What? It's not complete. What is the complete answer then?
If you stop, it's going to be, you can make it's med al sukun.
All right.
Continue.
That's true, but my question was, what is the proof that it is med tabi'i?
If we continue, then we don't have a sukoon after harf mad, nor we have a hamza, so we have to be if we continue. After harf mad.
I'm not sure if that answers the question or not. Yes, brother.
I'll give it a shot.
All right.
So it's a waw sakina,
Yeah.
and it's preceded by a harf with a dam. So that's harf al-mad. And it's not followed by a hamza afterwards. So if you continue then...
I guess we didn't do this for a long time, so we're kind of rusted a little bit. That's true. I mean, what you all said is not wrong. But, of course, whenever we mention a mad tabi'i, okay, if I mention a mad tabi'i, if you tell me that there is a mad tabi'i, I ask you what is the proof. The first proof is that we have to have harful mad, right? And I could ask you what is the proof that it is harful mad, right? If you tell me we have a waw, it is harful mad. I tell you why, how come it is harful mad. Then you tell me that because the waw has a sukoon and dhamma before it. And this is some of what you said. So we have to have حرف المد to have a مد طبيعي in the first place. And then you can tell me that this حرف المد doesn't have سكون after it if we continue. So it's going to be مد طبيعي. That's the proof that it's مد طبيعي, right? If we stop, like you said, Brother has said, it's going to be مد عارض للسكون, right? Because it's going to be non-original سكون. So you have to tell me all this, right? Sometime I may not ask you, I might trust you, and right? I may not ask you about the details, or I may not ask you to prove it, right? Sometimes I give you a break, or sometimes I trust that you know it, right? Is there any other rule in the word lakanud?
I don't think so.
All right. Jazakallah khair. Brother Yahya?
So there's qalqala at the end of the word.
Yes. There is.
Stop.
Yes. There is qalqala at the end. This was more important than the mad tabi'i because we spoke about it today. So because we have a dal at the end of the word lakanud, and this dal, even though it doesn't have a sukoon if we continue, but it does have a sukoon if we stop. We do put a sukoon when we stop. And the reason I ask you about it is because you didn't do it properly. You didn't, like, we barely heard the dal. We want to hear it more. Lakanud, right? We should have no doubt that there is a dal at the end. The way you did it was very faint. Like we barely heard it, right? So we want to make more qalqala on it. The common mistake, and this has nothing to do with your reading, one of the common mistakes that I just remembered is that people would do qalqala in letters that have nothing to do with the qalqala, right? This is very common in many people. So we have to make sure that we only do qalqala in these letters when they have sukoon. Only these letters, and when they have sukoon. No other letter will have qalqala. And of course, sometimes we tend to give more emphasis to a letter that is already weak. So we'll give it a qalqala, right, to strengthen it, right? We feel like we have to do it. We feel bad about this weak letter. So we want to strengthen it, and this is why we sometimes do qalqala in letters that don't have qalqala. So this is the mistake that we should avoid. All right? Jazakallah khair. Brother Baghdad?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به
فأثرن به فأثرن به فأثرن به You are making a mad after the noon. You are making a mad after the noon. فأثرن به. Yeah. You are making more emphasis on the noon. أحسن. فوسطن به نبه
فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا غافر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير
Something like that. All right, the question for you, ayah number 1, subha. What do we have in the word subha? Dabha, sorry. I have too much glare on my phone here.
We have Al-Qala. There is a small in the Al-Qala, and they have second one.
All right.
And
Did you do full stop? Did you do qalqala here? Maybe not. Yes, that's why I asked you, because you didn't do qalqala, or you didn't do it like clear enough. Do you agree with what he said about the rules that are found in this word?
Other results.
There are other rules. What other rules do we have? Yes. All right. You said if you stop, but he didn't mention anything else. That's it.
if you continue, there is a ikhfa with because there is a fa and there is tanween.
All right. All right. Jazakallah khair. Brother Hanif, you wanted to add something?
If we stop, then we have Matabi'i, Subha, and if we continue, then the tanween of this letter would be followed by Ba, which is one of the letters of Ikhfa, so we have Ikhfa of tanween or Nun Sakina.
All right, Jazakallah khair. You didn't mention the word ikhfa. You didn't give it details. That's fine. But you didn't mention anything about mat tabi'i. You said if we stop, then I don't know what happened if we stop, but if we stop here, we have mat tabi'i, right? And you didn't make it long enough, the mat tabi'i. Of course, the mat tabi'i, we don't make it too long, but we don't make it too short as well. Like dabaha, right? But you made it too short. You made it tabaha, right? Yeah. Did you find it more difficult to do the qalqala when it is in the middle of the word? It's more difficult, right? I think it may be more difficult for most people compared to when it's at the end. I think at the end it's easier to do, right? I don't know if you all agree. All right, Jazakallah khair. Brother Hanif.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
Jazakallah khair. You still have a problem with the waw in the word فَوَسَطْنَا. You didn't have a problem with it in the other one. You noticed it? All right. I'm glad you noticed it. Jazakallah khair. Brother Ibrahim?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
جزاك الله khair, Brother Ibrahim. In ayah number 4, the word نقع. What do we have in the word نقع?
قلقلة.
We have قلقلة. What's the proof?
قاف نقع.
Because we have a qaf.
Yeah, and قاف one of the قلقلة.
All right. Anything else we have in this word?
مد.
What kind of mad?
مد طبيعي.
All right. All right. Do you agree with him? Okay, let's see what Yahya has to say about you. Brother Yahya.
Well, there's qalqala, there's a qaf with a sukoon on it.
So, are you saying something different than what he said? Unless you don't know what he said.
I know what he said.
You know what he said? So, what did he say different?
Because I said it has a sukoon on it.
All right. So he didn't say it has a sukoon, and that's true.
And there's mad tabi'i if you stop, but if you continue, there's ikhfa because there's a fa and before it tanween.
So there's a fa and before it a tanween. So the ikhfa happen. The ikhfa is of the fa or is it of the tanween?
Tanween.
All right. So we say there's tanween followed by a fa, not a fa preceded by the tanween. It makes a difference because we go in this way, and it's in some cases, in some rules, we may have to go back and look at what is before, but in most cases we only look at what is after. Do we have an example of when do we have to look to something that is before? Is what? Darra, yes, that's true. That's the only thing that came to my mind, but I'm not sure if there's something else. In some cases, yeah, we have to look what is before. That means you are reading, and then when you find this letter, you have to go back and look what's before it. Yeah, it's very rare, but usually we only go this way. We only go like one way. All right, Jazakallah khair, that was correct. Brother Ibrahim, you heard Brother Yahya. All right. All right, Jazakallah khair. Brother Luqman.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر
بعثيرة ثيرة إذا بعثي yes
ما في القبور وأصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ
yeah. When I do this, you know what I'm talking about. All right, two questions. The first one is the word وَإِنَّهُ in the ayah number 7 or 8. They both have the same thing. وَإِنَّهُ. What rules do we have there?
So there's a no with a shadda, so we give it 2 harakat.
All right.
And I see a tiny wow.
Just there. Just there for sure. Well, that was your problem, right? even though it's small, but you have to say it. Don't ignore it. That was the mistake right there. That you didn't. You ignored the small, the poor small. Wow. All right. So I guess you know what it is, or you don't know?
Well, wa is one of the letters of mud, so
So what kind of mud is that?
I'm not sure.
All right. Anybody can help? Brother Yahya?
مد طبيعي.
All right. MashaAllah. You agree with him?
If we continue, it's not tabi'i.
Jazakallah khair. You agree with him? Did you finish?
Otherwise, we don't have much.
All right. Jazakallah khair. You agree with him? You heard him? Maybe we got lost now. All right. We have mad al-tabi'i at the end. If we continue, we have mad tabi'i, even though that waw is small, it is still harf al-mad, and we still have to do mad tabi'i because there is no sukoon after it. But if we stop, then there is no mad. If we stop, we would say wa inna, right? Wa inna. So there is no mad. So we have to specify. Now, what did you notice when Brother Luqman did something related to the qalqala, something that was wrong? But what was it? If you noticed, yes, Brother Musa. Jazakallah khair, Brother Yahya, you wanted to say something?
I was going to guess something. I thought he did something that
You don't want to say it?
no.
Okay, that's fine. That's all right. Yes, he did make a qalqala, like Brother Mustafa said, in the lam. Fala, he said, fala muriyat. Fala. And this is what qalqala is, but in the wrong letter. And this is the common mistake that we were mentioning.
Sorry, what ayah is this?
2. You did it in number 3, I believe, and also maybe in number 1. Number 6. Innal insana. It is very common, and usually people who have this issue, there's a lot of people who have this issue. You have to put it under control because the problem with this is that it's not consistent. That means you would sometimes do it in a word and sometimes you don't, right? First of all, you need to be consistent. Either you do it all the way and then fix it, or don't do it at all. Right? We want to be consistent even with mistakes, right? So we shouldn't make qalqala in letters other than these ones when they have sukoon. So we don't say, for instance, fala muriyat. We say fal muriyat, not fala, right? You are making the qalqala of the lam. You see the clear difference? You see the difference? You are saying fala, and you should say fal mu, not fala mu, fal mu. All right? Jazakallah khair. Brother Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
All right, Jazakallah khair. Ayah number 4, the word bihi. What rule do we have in the word bihi? Ayah number 4.
If we continue, we have mad tabi'i.
What's the proof?
There's a ya with a sukoon on it preceded by a kasra, which makes it half mad.
Is that the proof of the mad tabi'i, or?
And after it, there is no sukoon or hamza.
All right. So the first proof is for it being a mad at all, and the second proof, I guess, is the mad tabi'i part. Right? You agree with him? You agree with him? All right. That's correct. Jazakallah khair. Brother Mustafa?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير
You know what the problem is. We'll get to it inshallah in 3 weeks. Jazakallah khair. Brother Nabil.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
Jazakallah khair. In the last ayah, the word ربهم. What's the rule in the word ربهم? Any help? Yes. Who is talking? Brother Ibrahim? إخفاء. What's the proof? إخفاء of what? All right. What's the proof? What did you say, Brother Ibrahim?
I said إخفاء because the mean at the end of Rabbi followed by
And this is if we stop or if we continue?
if we continue.
If we continue. Do you agree with him? Incomplete, Brother Hanif said. What did you say, Brother Ibrahim?
I said it's me second.
Yeah. But Brother Hanif is saying that it's not complete. You want to talk to him later on? All right, what's the completion of this, Brother Hanif?
So we have mim sakina in the word rabbahum. If we stop here, then we have idhar of mim sakina. And if we continue, then this mim sakina will be followed by ba, which is the letter of ikhfa. So we have ikhfa of mim.
Jazakallah khair. You agree with him? You heard him? He said if we stop, then we have a mim sakina, and in that case we have idhar. Rabbahum. We say rabbahum if we stop. If we continue, then this mim sakina followed by ba, and the ba is the letter of ikhfa of the mim. So we have ikhfa, rabbahum bihim. Right, and that's the complete answer. You got it, Brother Nabil? Because you didn't make it properly, that's why I'm asking you. So, of course, the ikhfa has two haraka. I guess we mentioned this already unless I missed mentioning that it has two haraka. The idgham and the ikhfa of the mim have two haraka. Right? It's only the idhar that doesn't have two haraka. All right? So in the rules of mim sakina, two of the rules have two haraka, the ikhfa and the idgham. And in the rules of nun sakin and tanween, we have how many? We have ikhfa, idgham and iqlab. Iqlab, of course, idgham is just one part of the idgham, not the second part. The idgham with ghunna has two haraka, the other one only have one. All right, jazakallah khair, brother Nasser.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات سبحا فأثرنا به نقعا فوسطنا به جمعا.
أخي ناصر, there's no mad after the noon. فأثرنا به فوسطنا به.
فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
Did you do a lot of homework, Brother Nasser, this week? Yeah. Because today clearly you read much better than last time or the few times before. Did you notice that? Or just me? Yes? All right. Or it was not impressive?
I reviewed some old videos.
You reviewed some videos, some old videos. All right. I think you read much better than the last few times. But I noticed something in the Al-Qalqala when he read. What was it?
When it comes at the end of the letter, end of the word, that he did not pronounce it clearly.
Exactly. So it's the other way around. As I mentioned earlier, some people have a problem when it is in the middle. It seems like you had a problem when the qalqala is at the end, right? So when you read dabaha, you made it properly. When you read qadaha, you made it properly. When you read subaha, it was not as good as dabha and qadha, but when you read the word kanud and shahid and shadid, then we didn't hear the qalqala at all. Right? And this was the issue. La kanud, you have to hear the dal. La shahid, la shadid. Right? We didn't hear the dal at the end. That was the only thing that you need to work on, inshallah. All right? Jazakallah khair. Brother Sajjad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا.
Say again.
فأثرن به نقعا. فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
The word فأثرنا, you will need to review it and see how it is pronounced. It's like you are kind of merging one letter into another. So we have to hear the ra clearly. فأثرنا, فأثرنا, not فأثرنا. Like it's like you are kind of merging the ra into the noon or something. The word al-insan in ayah number 6. What do we have in the word al-insan?
There's a mabtali on the scene, and there's a ikhfa on the noon with sukun, because there's a kasra support or the hamza.
All right, that's interesting. Are you going backwards? So there is a noon with sukoon, and before it there is hamza.
Yeah.
All right, do you agree with him? No. In the noon, in the rules of noon, we never go backwards, do we? Unless I'm mistaken. In the rules of noon, we don't go back. We don't go and look at what's behind it. We look at what is after it. The noon is dependent, and the noon sakin is dependent on what is after it. And because there is a scene after it, what do we have? Yeah, we have ikhfa. I think you mentioned the word ikhfa, but then when it came to the proof, it was wrong because we don't look at what is before it. What else do we have here? Did you mention the mad? You mentioned the mad.
Yeah.
Was there anything else? That's about it.
If you stop, there's also a mabtali because there's sukun on the noon.
If you stop, there is mad tabi'i.
Yeah.
What if you don't?
It's still is a mabtali.
All right. Jazakallah khair. Do you agree with him, brother? No. So,
Oh, out of this. Oh, yeah, okay.
Brother Hanif?
It is from then we have mad arif with sukun, and we have noon sakin also. So we have izhar of noon sakin
Which one?
at the end of noon. Inside.
If you stop. All right. We'll take it. So in regards to the ikhfa that you mentioned, is correct. In regards to the mad, we have mad tabi'i if we continue. If we stop, we have mad arid al-sukun. We have mad arid al-sukun. Of course, it makes a difference because one of them is 2 haraka, the mad tabi'i, and the other one is 2, 4, or 6. So it makes a difference. If they were the same and we didn't mention the difference, then it may be okay, but because they are different in terms of length. And Brother Hanif mentioned that the noon will have idhar if we stop the last noon because of the sukoon on it and nothing after it. All right. The default rule for any letter is idhar, the default rule, right? Yes,
my question is to do with ayah number 5.
Mm-hmm.
I've observed some people make it forward. They say forward sotna, and some are saying forward satina. So I've not commented on that. So I'm not sure which is which.
All right. In this word fawasatna, all the letters are soft except the ta, So because of this ta, some people may tend to make the scene strong, right? And this is, of course, we're going to talk about it in level 4 or 5, where we talk about the soft letters and the strong letters, or the heavy letters, and how they affect each other. Even if a person knows how to pronounce the sin, and he knows how to pronounce the ta, when you put them together, you may have an issue, right? When you combine certain letters, you may have an issue, not because you don't know how to pronounce the letters, but because of the combination. So you may have a problem with the word fawasatna, you may not have a problem with another word that may contain the same letters, right? So we just have to make sure that all these letters are soft except the ta. فوسطنا, right? All right. Jazakallah khair, Brother Yahya.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
Jazakallah khair. So what do you notice when Brother Yahya is reading? Nothing?
Regarding which part?
Overall, like the general tone. Tafkhim?
From the nose.
Yes. Yes. You are basically using your nose more than you're supposed to. Right? So we want to, and I know I mentioned it before, we want to push the air out of the mouth when we are reciting. Right? And if you think about it, you may be able to make an effort and do it, right? You can control it. That means most of the time you can control it. So try to push the air out of your mouth when you are reading. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا. If I read it like this, I'm pushing the air out. If I don't make an effort, right, I would say وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا. Like this I'm using my nose more. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا. Like this, right? But instead, if I push the air, I basically force it. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا. It is different. Can you hear the difference? You got it? All right. Next time you try it and see how it feels like. All right. Good. Brother Abu Yahya Zakaria.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
The two haraka, ربهم بهم. Yeah, I think we mentioned it before. The two haraka. The qalqala at the end of the word, you are kind of making a shadda on it. The shaheed, like this, you are doing it. So we don't want to put a shadda on it. Just relax. The shaheed, not shaheed, right? Okay. Let me read it one more time. You heard me read it the first time. Now I'm going to read it with a different riwayah and see what is different between this and the riwayah that I read first, which is the default, Hafs and Asim. So this is riwayat Warsh and Nafi', and you see minor differences. But let's see if you can notice the differences now. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير. All right. What did you notice? Brother Nasser?
I think there is difference in the word al-mughirat. To make it with, I think, with kasra.
What I try to do in the Mughirat is that the second. I think it's either the ra is soft in the Mughirat. I may not have done it properly. I don't usually read with this, but I attempted to do it softly, the soft ra. And as I mentioned before, the rules of ra in this qira'ah and way more complicated than in the qira'ah of Hafs. Way more complicated. And you will see how complicated it is in Hafs. In Warsh is way more. So the ra, I believe the ra in the Mughirati is soft. It may not have an imala, I believe, unless I'm mistaken. It's probably just soft. Any other difference? Yes, Brother Baghdad? Insan, yeah. Insan without the hamza. Inna linsana. Inna linsana. Any other difference? I think the word bu'thira, it may or may not be soft. It may or may not be soft. The ra. I guess those are all the differences.
So we have lam, we have a kasra lam in the insan.
What happened is that they dropped the hamza, and the way they drop it is by doing I believe a kasra on the lam. It's like when they say I can't find another example. What's another example of al-ard? Yeah, they would say lard. So they jump from the lam to the ra. So they say lard, right? Qalqala of lam. It sounds like a qalqala of lam. I guess the more emphasized. Well, it's kind of we had the chance to hear it last year during the Taraweeh. Sometimes some of them are kind of annoying to do it this way. Maybe sometimes if you are not used to it. Some other ones are kind of nice, like the qira'ah. I can't remember which one it is, where they stop before the hamza. They stop just before a hamza. In certain words, I can't remember the exact rule. Especially in the word ard, they would say fil ard. They would start. Every time you stop, it's kind of, it requires more effort, and you have to control your breathing and stuff. So it's kind of more challenging. All right. I guess we spent too much time on Surah Al-Adiyat. It's already 8 o'clock. If there is time, we'll read Surah Al-Falaq next week with the quiz and with the first rule of Ar-Ra. Yeah, not written. What did you say? Written? Not written. No. It's just an ayah or a short surah that we're going to recite. And as we did last time, like the person who is reciting will open the mushaf, the others will just listen. So next week, Surah Al-Falaq, the quiz, and the first lesson of Ar-Ra. And the homework for that was Surah Al-Adiyat. So if there is time to read Surah Al-Adiyat again with the ahkam of Ar-Ra in mind, That would be also beneficial. Or the few last ayat of Surah Al-Adiyat. So Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Adiyat, and the quiz. The lesson is very short and simple, the first lesson, because we're going to divide it into 3 parts. So we're only going to speak about the first part of Ahkam al-Ra. We are not going to talk about all the details. All right, any questions before we close? Yes, brother.
For the quizzes,
It's a surprise. I put the word surprise somewhere here. Yeah, it's a surprise. To show to all your mistakes will come out. We want to bring out all your mistakes. Right? Either a short surah or a small ayah, like 2 lines, or not very long. So something small. Last time we did Surah Al-Fil, right? لإيلاف قريش. So something similar to that. قريش. Nothing to do with Al-Fil. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.